It all begins after a failed experiment where Razel tries to make a weapon to compete on equal footing against ultimate life forms. So, he activates his flight magic, thinking of migrating to a well-populated city, but a portal suddenly opens, surprising Razel. So while he checks out his magic circle to see if there's a bug in his spell, a hand pops out of the portal, surprising Razel as he backs off a little while a weird-looking lady emerges from the portal. When Razel asks the lady who she is, she introduces herself as Risha, the summoning goddess. She then smiles like a red light district hustler, while Razel wonders if she's really who she claims to be. So Risha explains that she showed up in his world in hopes of summoning a hero and asks Razel if he's the strongest person in the world. Surprised, Razel thinks she must be trying to do a fairy tale roleplay, but Risha says it's not a fairy tale, making Razel wonder how she read his mind. At this point, Razel introduces himself as the strongest human in the world and asks if all he has to do is follow her. Excited, Risha thanks him for being willing to follow her and explains that he'll just have to follow a king's order and defeat a demon lord. Afterwards, Risha touches the portal, and Razel suddenly gets sucked into it. Shortly after, he finds himself in a king's palace where the king welcomes everyone and reveals that he summoned them all. Hearing this, Razel spots some guys and figures he's not the only one summoned. So, he checks out their powers and realizes they look more like zeros than heroes. Just then, Regias, the king's aide, explains that demons have been at war with the humans for a long time and would soon take over the world if left unchecked. He then adds that it's why the heroes are summoned, and afterwards, a maid brings in a device. So Regias calls on the heroes to test their combat capabilities. So Leal decides to go first, since he was the first summoned, and he puts his hand on the crystal ball. Suddenly, the crystal ball shoots out beams of light and reveals some weird characters. The aide then checks it out and announces that he's got a combat power rating of 4097. Impressed, everyone in the palace marvels at this while Razel wonders if the number was that impressive. After this, Frodo goes up next, and it was announced that his combat power is 3664. After Banza's power was appraised, Regias comments on how amazing the heroes are and announces that it's Razel's turn. However, when Razel steps up and places his hand on the crystal ball, nothing happens, so he informs Regias that the crystal ball isn't reacting. Just then, Regias checks the crystal ball and announces that he has 0 combat power. On hearing this, the king orders him to get out immediately and states that he can't recognize a 0 as a hero. Meanwhile, Razel begs, claiming it must be an error and claims he could use magic. To prove it, he suddenly exhibits an atom reconstruction spell which converts a wood into a diamond, making Regias freak out while Razel feels like a god, thinking he cooked. However, the king says it's irrelevant since such a spell doesn't exist in their world. Agitated, Razel explains that the spell is a big deal in his world, but the king accuses Razel of being a charlatan and orders him to leave the castle at once. After this, Razel was thrown out, and his gem was handed to him as a farewell gift. Later, Razel walks into a weapons workshop where he asks if the shop owner could buy the diamond, but the shop owner asks if he robbed a jewelry shop. In response, Razel explains that it was made artificially and asks if there's a shop that works with artificial jewels. However, the shop owner insinuates that he's never heard of artificial diamonds and informs Razel that he'll never be broke again if he sells the jewel at a shop. Hearing this, Razel figures artificial diamonds don't exist yet in the world, so he states that he needs money fast and offers to sell the diamond for a giveaway price, shocking the shopkeeper, who then asks if he's the new Mr. Beast. Afterwards, the shop owner agrees to his proposition and they shake hands. Later, at an inn, Razel lies in bed and laments about ending up in an unbelievable place. When it hits him that he's actually in another world, he wonders what a demon lord is like, since there's none where he's from. Since he's been exiled, Razel figures he wouldn't be getting any help from the humans, so he decides to visit the demon lord. Shortly after, Razel initiates a storage magic and pulls out a recon satellite attached to a printer. He then decides to create a map of the path to the demon castle. So he launches his miniature satellite and decides to take a nap while the map is being completed. The next morning, Razel checks the printer and discovers that the map has been fully printed. So while he packs the map into his storage, he senses a presence and activates his high detection magic. Just then, he spots 5 assassins around the inn and intercepts their voice transmission magic. After this, Razel overhears them talking about him and concludes they must have been sent by the king. So he heads out as he comes to the realization that he's been declared excommunicado. Meanwhile, the assassins get into position and plan to harvest Razel's head after assassinating him. Unknown to them, Razel plans to use them to his advantage. Once they spot that no one was in Razel's vicinity, one of the assassins fires a poison dart at him. However, Razel figures it's a poison that'll render him unconscious, so he deploys his protection magic while the dart hits his neck. When Razel pretends to collapse, the assassins surround him and plan to cut off his head. However, Razel suddenly activates a swift movement lightning magic and knocks all the assassins unconscious. After this, he casts a spell to keep them sleeping for a while and reaches into his storage. Shortly after, he pulls out a multifunctional stem cell, which he had stored away after failed attempts to create John Wick versions of himself. Since his clones couldn't swing like John, Razel decides to create one to act as his corpse. So he creates a clone of himself and makes it look like him before laying its body among the assassins. When he was done casting a recovery magic on the assassins, Razel continued his journey to the Demon Lord's house. Some moments later, the assassins awaken, thinking Razel's defense magic took them out. However, to their surprise, they find his body lying on the floor and conclude he's dead. So one of them takes out his knife and chops off the clone's head, leaving a headless body in the alley. Meanwhile, Razel arrives at the Demon Lord's castle and approaches the guards at the gate. Alarmed, they stop him and ask what business he has at the Demon Lord's residence. In response, Razel says that he just wants to have a chat with the Demon Lord and asks them to guide him. Surprised, the guards point their spears at his neck and tell him to quit screwing around. Hearing this, Razel apologizes for the sudden visit and states that he doesn't mind making an appointment, while the guards state that they can't let a summoned hero meet the Demon King. In response, Razel explains that although he's a summoned hero, he was exiled by the king, who also sent agents to assassinate him. After this, Razel states that it's not weird for him to be on the Demon Lord's side despite being human, but the guards poke his chin with their spears and reveal that a previously summoned hero has played that trick on them before. When they insist they won't fall for it, Razel figures he has to find a way to tweak their brains. So he points to a tower and states that it contains a fake teleportation magic obstructing barrier. Hearing this, the guards get furious and make Razel realize that the barrier was carefully constructed by the Demon Lord. So, Razel then thanks them for confirming his suspicion, while the guard freaks out when he realizes what he's done. Afterwards, the guard dares Razel to try getting past the teleportation obstruction. So he swings his hands and activates a magic circle while saying he doesn't need a strong teleportation magic for it. Immediately, Razel disintegrates before their eyes, leaving the guards astounded at the sight. A few moments later, Raze appears somewhere else and figures it must be the Demon Lord's room. Just then, someone asks him who he is and turns to find out it, Mersha, the Demon Lord. While she questions Razel about who he is, Razel assesses her magic powers and realizes she's 100 times stronger than the scarecrows at the gate. However, Mersha screams at him, asking why a human showed up at her crib. When she wonders why her teleportation barrier failed, Razel asks if she's the Demon Lord. Surprised by his question, Mersha confirms she is and asks why he showed up. In response, Razel apologizes for passing through her barrier without asking and asks her to forgive him since the barrier wasn't destroyed. After Mersha points out that his invasion is ridiculous, she wonders who he is and what he's trying to do. Just then, Razel introduces himself and explains how he got summoned as a hero and was exiled due to some circumstances. After this, he states that he's there to ask about the world, surprising Mersha. When he asks again to be sure she's the Demon Lord, a dark aura emanates from Mersha, who then attacks Razel with her magic while telling him to quit playing with her. However, Razel sees the oncoming attack and realizes he chose the wrong method to get through to her. So he thwarts her magic with a touch of his finger, annoying Mersha, who then launches more attacks. While he defends himself, Razel feels troubled since he has no way to prove he was exiled. Afterwards, Mersha points out that he's quite competent while Razel wonders what he should do. Suddenly, Sarina and Jeek, Mersha's guards, barge into the room, asking if she's all right. On spotting Razel, they ask who he is, and Mersha warns them to be careful since her attacks didn't work on him. Meanwhile, Razel assesses the guards and discovers that their combat ability is a fraction of Mersha's. While they assure Mersha that they'll eliminate Razel, he figures he'd better quit playing the gentleman, but he holds back, since that'll be a declaration of war on the Demon Lord. To avoid this, Razel raises his hands and casts a spell to make them believe that talking it out peacefully is the better option. Suddenly, Sarina and Jeek's necks get sliced through by Razel's magic, while Mersha freaks out as she watches. Razel then quickly casts another spell to undo the slicing of their necks, leaving Jeek and Sarina surprised, since they had felt their heads almost falling off. Shocked, Mersha asks if her guards revived themselves, but Razel says that he never intended to eliminate them in the first place. Sensing their shock, Razel asks if they think they'd die just because their heads went flying, but Mersha calls him a weirdo while adding that there's never been a spell that lets someone survive after losing their head. Hearing this, Razel asks if politics has dulled her understanding of magic, while Sarina responds by saying Mersha is the Demon Lord because she's the strongest. However, Mersha stops Sarina and states that it's obvious that Razel is well beyond their sense of knowledge. After this, she points out that Razel has come to gather information and tells him to inquire about anything he wishes. Just then, Sarina says they aren't sure if Razel is an enemy or not, but Mersha says she'd just have to give up if it comes to that, since it is better than receiving damages. In addition to this, she says she has a feeling that Razel will become an ally if they properly talk things out. Afterwards, Mersha tells his subordinates to stay on standby outside, while Razel figures that things are starting to settle down. Surprised by her command, Jeek and Sarina head outside the room while Mersha sits on her throne and tells Razel to go ahead with his questions. So Riza asks if the human race is about to be dominated by the rapidly expanding demon race, but Mersha says it's all wrong. Curious Riza asks what she means, and Mersha explains that the demons have not grown in firepower in hundreds of years. In addition to this, Mersha explained that humans have gotten stronger and are forcing unfavorable conditions on them. She then tosses a scroll at Razel, and when he catches it, he asks what it is. In response, Mersha explains that it's a contract between the demons and humans, so Razer comments that he could feel the king's magic from it. On opening the scroll, Razel realizes that the contract was made in favor of the humans, so he asks why they could agree to such an unreasonable contract, and Mersha explains that a previous demon king was eliminated by the hero. After this, she adds that when the demon lord died, no one was able to defeat the hero, so she had to take the contract to avoid losing the throne to the hero. Upon hearing this, Razel wonders why the goddess summoned more heroes when they already had such a powerful hero. So he asks Mersha if the hero is still alive, and she responds, saying he is. When she adds that she would have destroyed the contract otherwise, Razel asks why the humans summoned him. Mersha then responds by pointing out that since he was exiled, he was lucky to have escaped death. When Razel expresses his surprise on hearing this, Mersha reveals that he was summoned as a sacrifice. While Razel marvels at this, Mersha explains that people like him are called sacrifices. Curious, Razel asks her to tell him more. She explains that many years ago, when the first hero was summoned, he was no match against the 4 heavenly kings, and every other hero after that were pretty much the same, so the human leaders ordered the goddess to bring a stronger hero. While she explains, Razel asks if the goddess made a magic tool to merge the previous heroes, and Mersha confirms that she did. She then asks how he understands, and adds that the combined hero was so much stronger than the demon lord during the time. With the combined hero, the humans created unfavorable conditions for the demons and continued to summon more heroes. When the heroes grow near their limits, they let the combined hero absorb them. Due to this, the combined hero got stronger, and the human king justified their actions by saying they're preparing for the emergence of a strong demon lord. Afterwards, Razel figures the goddess and the hero are the enemies and blames himself for following the goddess. After this, he decides to make her pay for trying to sacrifice him, and says that he'd like to find out if Mersha's story checks out. So he activates his magic and tries to gather some evidence with his satellite's analysis. Meanwhile, Mersha wonders what he's trying to do while thinking he must be using a kind of detection magic. So, Razel scans the palace using his satellite and points out that he found traces of the magic tool and the combined hero there. Shocked, Marcia asks how he was able to scout the palace, and Razel explains that it's easy as long as he has some tools for analyzing. After commenting on how sophisticated Razel is, Mersha asks if he needed her to get answers to his questions in the first place. So Razel says that he wouldn't have thought of searching the palace for the combined hero if not for her, and thanks her for informing him that he was summoned to be a sacrifice. Afterwards, Razel thinks of taking the combined hero hostage to get the goddess to send him back to his world. However, since doing that wouldn't help Mersha in any way, Razel gets an idea and asks Mersha if she'd like to defeat the demon lord. In response, Mersha says she would, since he was responsible for the defeat of her ancestors. Hearing this, Razel says it's settled and offers to guide Mersha while promising to give her enough power to surpass the combined hero. Unimpressed, Mersha asks why he's willing to go that far, and Razel explains that he's trying to corner the goddess into a negotiation so he can return to his own world. At this point, Mersha realizes he wasn't helping her to clap her, so she asks how she could ever be as strong as the combined hero. In response, Razel explains that the combined hero has about 1/5 of his strength and adds that it's a level she could attain with just sheer effort. On hearing this, Mersha says it's easier said than done, while Razel points out that she is the strongest of her race and adds that it would work out if she follows his lead. After Mersha agrees, they shake hands, and Razel suggests they go in Spartan style, but Mersha tells him to go easy on her. Afterwards, Razel asks if there is a place where you could train her, since he'd like to have a simulation battle to assess her current level. In response, Mersha states that there is one a few kilometers away and shows him where it is on his map. However, Razel comments that it's far and then states that he'll have to do something about it. So he tells her to hold on to him, while Mersha asks if they will be flying together. Just when Mersha tries to say she's not ready, Razel activates his magic, and they suddenly take off into the sky. Shortly after, at the training grounds, Mersha feels dizzy and tries to ask a question, but she throws up in the process. Seeing this, Razel apologizes, but Mersha says it's nothing and asks what kind of magical item he set up on the training grounds. So Razel explains that it's a phantom world tool that would make outsiders think they're merely exercising. In addition to this, Razel states that the outsiders won't be able to see, no matter how much she loses, so Mersha thanks him for being considerate. Afterwards, Razel states that she must be ready while Mersha warns him, saying she'll be going all out. So Razel announces the beginning of the simulation. Some moments later, Mersha wonders how Razel would attack and prepares to deflect his attack. However, Razel vanishes to her surprise as she wonders where he went. She then realizes that his mana is spreading and wonders if she could hit him with her magic. Suddenly, she senses a presence behind her, and when she turns to check it out, she gets hit on the head by a ball. After discovering it's just a sports ball, Mersha grabs her head, feeling the pain, and hears Razel telling her to try dodging the ball. While Mersha marvels at his telepathic communication, Razel comments that he's only using magic strengthening and adds that he looks forward to seeing her get serious. So Mersha responds, saying she'll dodge the balls for sure, but before she finishes, another ball hits her on the head. After a while, Mersha manages to block one of the ball attacks, so Razel commends her and tells her to test her magic firepower on him. So she decides to focus on accuracy instead of firepower and activates some magical circles. Seeing this, Razel realizes it's a frame cannon and decides to put up a barrier in case it hits. Suddenly, Mersha attacks Razel, and it results in an explosion, leaving Mersha gasping for air. When she asks Razel how the attack was, Razel couldn't believe his eyes when he saw his barrier damaged from the attack. After the smoke in the training ground clears up, Mersha asks Razel what he thinks about her attack and collapses while saying she's exhausted. Meanwhile, Razel wonders how she broke his three-dimensional barrier with her two-dimensional magic, since he didn't put up a weak barrier. So he offers to help Mersha get back up and wonders how much firepower Mersha could display with stronger magic. Afterwards, he challenges her to destroy another barrier, but Mersha tells him to let her recompose herself. After taking a break, Razel asks about the barrier. So Razel puts the barrier, and when he asks her to hit it with her strongest magic, Mersha wonders if it'll be fine since it could blow up the entire area. However, Razel tells her not to worry and puts up a barrier that absorbs any attack. Mersha then activates her magic circle and announces that she's at her full strength. Suddenly, she unleashes her attack, but when it hits Razel's barrier, the attack gets absorbed, surprising Mersha, who then freaks out. After this, Razel asks if that's all she's got, and Mersha responds, asking if he's got a problem with her level of attack. While she feels down for not meeting his expectations, Razel tells Mersha to cheer up since he discovered something. When Mersha asks what it is, Razel suddenly realizes that he hasn't asked for her name. So he apologizes, while Mersha says it's not entirely his fault since she didn't tell him her name either. Afterwards, she introduces herself and asks Razel to help her defeat the combined hero. Just then, Razel thanks her for her sincerity and adds that she doesn't need to feel down since she's got extremely strong magic powers. However, when he adds that she needs to work on her techniques and magic formations, Mersha asks him to break it down for a dummy. So Razel explains the three-part formula combined into magic output and reveals that the power of her magic is built on it. To make her understand better, Razel explains that someone with a high magic output like her could grow a lot more than an average person. Hearing this, Mersha gets energized as she asks if she could really get stronger, and Razel says she'd have to learn the three-dimensional magic first. Surprised, Mersha asks what that is, surprising Razel that she doesn't know, so he wonders how many more cultural shocks he'd be getting. After this, he explains that the magic formations she's using are the limited two-dimensional ones, unlike the three-dimensional ones, which are unlimited. Hearing this, Mersha points out that the three-dimensional magic could make her magic as large as she wants, and Razel agrees with her. However, she asks how she'd be able to use the magic when she can't use the analysis magic. In response, Razel reveals that he has a method of training for it, since he couldn't use magic the moment he was born. Curious, Mersha asks why he wants to train her, and adds that he could just take out the hero himself and return to his world. Razel then says that although that could work, he's training her to show his gratitude for the intel he received from her. When he adds that he'd also like to bring her to his world as his party member if she's cool with it, Mersha asks him what that means. Razel then reveals that he has an opponent he can't beat by himself and might need a sidekick. Surprised, Mersha asks if she could face someone he can't defeat, and Razel states that he just found out in the simulation that she's the perfect choice. After this, Razel says he must be asking for the impossible, but Mersha agrees to go with him and states she doesn't like owing favors since Razel is helping her for free. After Razel thanks her for this, Mersha reveals that she's got a younger sister afflicted with a mysterious illness that makes her body weaker. So, she adds that she'd like her sister to take the throne when she's gone, but she's unfit for any combat-related duties. When she asks Razel if he could cure it or examine her, Razel responds by saying medicals are out of his expertise. However, when he says he'll do what he can, Mersha suggests they hurry and fly back to the palace. Shortly after, while Cecil, Mersha's sister, reads a book in the castle, a portal suddenly opens in the room. When Cecil observes this, she gets alarmed and wonders how that's possible when Mersha's barrier is up and running. Razel walks in carrying Mersha like a gym bag. When Razel puts her down, Mersha apologizes to Cecil for surprising her, but Cecil asks who Razel is and how they broke her barrier, which was supposed to be perfect. So Mersha introduces Razel as a strong man from another world who destroyed her barrier and possesses spells that could erase her magic like it's nothing. Hearing this, Cecil points out that he must be an incredible person, while Mersha explains that she brought him, hoping he can cure her illness. After this, Mersha suggests that she let Razel take a look at her to figure out the cause of the illness. When Cecil agrees to be checked out, Razel realizes that she believes in Mersha. Just then, Mersha tells him to proceed, so Razel takes Cecil's hand and tells her not to be nervous. Shortly after, Mersha asks Razel what he means by hardened mana veins, and he explains that Cecil has stickier mana than normal, which then affects their magic output. Worried, Cecil asks if it's a difficult illness to treat, but Razel reaches into his storage and reveals that the illness also existed in his world. He then pulls out a capsule and explains that it's a medicine that could smoothen the mana inside her body. However, when he adds that it'll take a few days for its effects to kick in, Mersha freaks out, asking if just one capsule could heal Cecil. So, Razel gives her the capsule and asks her to swallow it. After she swallows it, Mersha asks her if it worked, but Cecil says she doesn't feel any different. So, Mersha freaks out and says that it's not working, but Razel reminds her that it takes days to work. He then asks for permission to advance Cecil's body by a few days, and when it was granted, Razel touches her forehead and skips her for a week. Just then, Mersha asks Cecil how she feels, and she reveals that the flow of mana inside her is completely different. Excited, both sisters hug amidst tears while Razel watches, thinking of other items on his list of problems. Afterwards, Cecil tries out her magic while Misha watches, and she successfully reverses a vase back to its original materials. Seeing this, Rael comments that she could use high-level spells without breaking a sweat, while Cecil comments that it's her first time being able to use magic easily. Excited that her sister has been cured, Mersha hugs her as they sob, while Razel explains that bad manasterol is the element that messed up Cecil's magic. In addition, he states that everyone has the element regardless of whether it's apparent or not, and offers his medicine as the cure. When Mersha asks what he's driving at, Razel says she could use it on her troops, and it'll make them power up instantly. Interested, Mersha asks if the medicine is mass-producible in their world, and Razel says that he's got a lot left in his storage. So Mersha says she'll use any help she can get and announces that she's leaving to distribute it to everyone quickly. After she leaves, Cecil comments that it must be difficult making a companion out of her sister, and when Razel confirms this, Cecil states that although she'll be lonely without her, she won't stop them if Mersha agrees to go with him. After this, she adds that she'll work hard in her sister's absence, and Razel commends her for being reliable. He then asks Cecil if she has any experience in governing, but Cecil says she's ashamed to admit she has none. So Razel takes out the A-Simulator, an educational magic item that could help her learn anything from any expert. Just when Cecil wonders how that's possible, Mersha returns, beaming with smiles, as she announces that she has distributed the capsules. So Cecil welcomes her back while Razel announces that she returned at the perfect time. So he sits Mersha down and announces that he'll be drawing out her memories. After her brain goes on a short break, she realizes what that means and asks what he needs her memories for. So Razel assures her that her memories will only be copied by the A-Simulator and hands her an object to put on her head. After this, he sets up the device while Mersha puts the object in her head and asks Razel how he could do many amazing things. In response, Razel says it's why the ladies love him. Some moments later, Mersha tells Razel to go ahead, and he activates the device with his magic. Suddenly, Mersha's memories were imported into the object while Cecil watched in anticipation. When it is completed, Razel takes out the object from her hair and instructs Cecil to press a magic stone in the middle of the A-Simulator. On doing this, a screen pops up displaying Mersha, making the ladies freak out. Just then, the device generates some questions on situations that'll assess Cecil's decision-making skill, and after a few trials, she gets excited about getting the answers right. So Razel points out that it's a good way to earn experience, and Cecil promises to do her best for the present and the future. The next day, Razel and Mersha sit at a table where he announces that they'll begin the second stage of his training to surpass the combined hero. After Mersha agrees to this, she asks if it'll be fine to do it in her room, and Razel says it's fine while adding that they'll be using a magic repeller. While Mersha wonders what it does, Razel states that it's a device that repels magic in a room and dissolves it inside an organism. On hearing this, Mersha asks if it wouldn't affect Razel's body, and he says he could die in a worst-case scenario. While Mersha freaks out, Razel assures her that they won't go that far. Afterwards, Mersha asks what they'll do with the device, and Razel explains that she'll need to prevent her magic from leaving her body by controlling it with her will. While Mersha wonders what he means, Razel explains that she needs to learn to control her magic in the most delicate way, so he takes a candle and asks Mersha to try lighting it up. Thinking it's going to be a piece of cake, Mersha says it's simple and gets to it. However, she soon realizes that it's not a walk in the park. After this, she points out that she's a demon lord and should be able to light the candle, but she still couldn't, so she gets furious and tries a little harder. Just then, a little spark appears on the candle wick, but it soon goes out, leaving Mersha frustrated. So she breaks down in tears, saying that her magic just dissipates without anything happening. But Razel asks if she's giving up already, and she insists that she'll keep trying until she can do it. Just then, someone knocks on the door, and when Razel opens the door, he finds Cecil with a tray of tea, so he signals to her to be quiet while Cecil peeks in and spots Mersha struggling to light a candle. Afterwards, Cecil walks in with the tea tray, but Razel takes it from her. While Mersha focuses on her magic, Cecil sets up the A-simulator, and Razel serves them both tea. Sometime later, Mersha's training candle lights up to everyone's surprise, and she freaks out, impressed by her achievement. So, Razel comments that it's impressive for the first time since there's no magic leaking, and the fire didn't go out either. At this point, Mersha bragged about her achievement and added that she's tired. Ignoring this, Razel announces that they'll be switching to more complex magic and tells Mersha to give him a heads up when she is ready. Later at the training grounds, while the magic repeller works, Mersha practices some water-bending skills, and after she's done, Razel announces that she passed. Excited by this, Mersha comments that it went well, while Razel states that she has made impressive progress in just a month. Afterwards, Mersha asks if they came all the way out to test her magic. Razel reveals that he'll be teaching her something new. So he activates his magic, and he builds up a wall before him and reveals that it's solid magic. While Mersha stares in amusement, Razel comments that he has only shown her the basis of it. So Mersha points out that the wall is stacked on multiple layers of flat surfaces to form a solid wall. However, Razel tells her that the solid magic must be formed instantly since it could crumble if she gets hurt halfway. After this, he asks if she could try it, and Mersha says she can. So she motivates herself and activates her magic to build up the wall. When she finishes, Mersha figures her concentration and details of the wall were good, so he commends her work, saying it's good for first-timers. However, when Mersha brags about being a demon lord, Razel announces that he'll be testing the wall she made. Surprised, Mersha exclaims while Razel launches an explosive magical attack against her wall. Fortunately, the wall stands unscratched, so Razel comments that it's tougher than a flat-surfaced one. Some moments later, Mersha had surrounded herself with the magical walls, so she informs Razel that she's made a super thick wall, and he commends her. Excited, Mersha celebrates her achievement and collapses to the ground, feeling tired. So, Razel heals her while commenting that she has done well in a short amount of time. A few moments later, he says they'll be practicing the applications of the solid magic the following day, and asks Mersha if she needs a break. But Mersha says she doesn't need any until she has mastered the magic. Hearing this, Razel then says he'll have to go harder on her, and Mersha tells him to bring it on. Sometime later, Razel and Mersha visit a new place, and he asks if the place is the duty she's been talking about. In response, Mersha says it is, and explains that it's the demon nation's food storage and farmland. Impressed, Razel chips in that it must be hard to maintain farmland of that scale, but Mersha reveals that they have to cast rainshore spells on the land to pour rain on the massive fields. After this, Razel asks why she brought him there, and Mersha reveals that a multi-layer magic should be efficient for situations like that. So, Razel asks if she figured out the structure of the multi-layer rainshore magic, and Mersha confirms that she has, while adding that since it's her first time, she's not sure she can execute it properly. Just then, Razel points out that she wants him to keep his eye on her, while Mersha explains that she wouldn't like to drag her people into a magic explosion. Impressed, Razel figures Mersha is using her training for her duties, since she's determined to improve. So he requests to see her magic structure, and Mersha activates her magic circle to show him. After inspecting it, Razel comments that she got it right and tells her to show him the spell. So Mersha talks herself into calming down and performs the spell while Razel watches, amused. Impressed by her talent, Razel tells her to activate the spell, and Mersha casts the spell on the farmlands. Immediately, the spell takes effect, and it begins to rain on the farmlands, so the villagers get excited while commenting on how big the magic circle is. After this, Mersha turns to Razel and asks how the spell went, and in response, Razel comments that the year's harvest will be record-breaking since she nailed it. Hearing this, Mersha breaks down in tears and states that she's so glad. While Razel watches her, thinking she didn't shed a tear during her training, Mersha says that they won't have to rely on the overpriced trades from the humans anymore. Shocked to hear this, Razel asks if their food was ripped off, and Mersha confirms that it is. He then figures they'd have been in trouble if he had shown up a second later, while Mersha thanks him for siding with them. Afterwards, Mersha points out that her people can have a full stomach, and adds that she's looking forward to the harvest since she can't wait to see the human traders' faces. Meanwhile, at the human royal capital, the king screams in annoyance when he reads the reports of their declining sales, while his subordinate fidgets before him. When the king asks what's going on, the subordinate explains that the demons don't need their trades anymore since they're now self-sufficient. While the subordinate fidgets, thinking he might walk home headless for upsetting the king calls on Regias and asks if the three heroes are well-equipped. When he responds saying they are, the king tells him to order the heroes to attack the demon lord's city. Just when Regias tries to remind them that they'll be breaching the contract, the king gives an order to have the demon lord eliminated, and adds that the demons be forced to buy the same amount forever by a new condition in the contract. However, Regias points out that the heroes are not strong enough to fight the demon lord yet, but the king says he's aware of that. After this, the king recites a part of the contract that binds demons from murdering any hero and orders Regias to force the demons into breaking the contract so that the combined hero will face them, and war will break out. When he adds that bringing down the demons is a priority and no one cares about the death of the heroes, Regias excuses himself to execute the king's command. After he dismisses his subordinates, the king calls the demons fools and vows to make them understand that they can't disobey humans. Meanwhile, Banza walks along a corridor and overhears someone talking about invading the demon capital, so he decides to eavesdrop. Just then, he hears the king talking about heroes being dispensable and wonders if the king is trying to use them as pawns. However, he walks along and dismisses the thought by saying they'd be dead if the king wanted them dead. Meanwhile, somewhere in a desert, Mersha comments that the place looks empty and asks if they'll be having their simulation battle there. In response, Razel states that her skills are on another level and would damage the usual arena. When he asks if she's going all out, Mersha says she is, so Razel suggests they don't pull any punches. Suddenly, Mersha activates a magic spear spell and launches the attack at Razel, who then figures that a simple attack won't suffice to block the attack. So he puts up an iron barrier as Mersha's attacks hit, but since no damage was caused, Mersha comments that she saw it coming and activates another spell that makes her emit lightning that'll make Thor jealous. However, Mersha figures it's the homing Volt's attack, so he launches a magnetic counter spell, which diverts the attack back at Mersha. On seeing this, Mersha freaks out and activates a flash step, which helps her evade the incoming attack. After this, Razel commends Mersha's efforts and states that it's his turn, so he unleashes a mist and states that it's going to numb her senses. However, Razel soon figures out that Mersha is using the antidote magic he uses. When he looks closer, Razel realizes she is not just using the antidote magic, so Mersha suddenly launches a devastating attack on Razel. But when the flames clear up, she couldn't believe her eyes when she finds him standing unscathed. So Razel asks what that was all about, and Mersha asks how he's safe when he didn't even put up a barrier. In response, Razel tells her to check out her magic circle, and when she does, she realizes that her target was set to nothing. While she laments, Razel explains that it's easy to rewrite the target of the spell and adds that it's not good for offensive attacks. Hearing this, Mersha screams, saying she got carried away with winning, while Razel assures her that the combined hero won't be able to rewrite the spell target. After this, he commends Mersha on her plan for the simulation battle and adds that she won't lose against the combined hero if she keeps her guard up. Hearing this, Mersha laughs and says that defeating the combined hero is easy. Shortly after, while they have sandwiches, Mersha comments that the training had its fun moments and adds that she was motivated since she got to learn new things. While they talk, Mersha reminds Razel of her promise to become his companion and states her intention to keep it, making Razel figure she's different from the friends he's had. Shortly after Razel opens up a teleportation portal and suggests they head back, they suddenly get covered by a large shadow, making Marcia wonder what it is. Just then, an ancient dragon lands and asks who dares to disturb his nap. When Marcia identifies it as the ancient dragon, Razel asks if she knows it, but Marcia says it's her first time seeing a dragon. When she states that it's similar to the ones in the legends, Razel wonders what she's talking about. So Marcia narrates that a civilization was once destroyed by the dragon. But those who survived, thrived on, and gave birth to the next generation under the condition that they would never disturb the dragon. After this, she reveals that they've just awakened the Thanos of their time, while Razel comments that they did something terrible and asks if they should punch the dragon back to sleep. The ancient dragon overhears this and laughs at the puny demon trying to punch him. So Marcia blames Razel for running his mouth loud enough to annoy the ancient dragon. While Razel tries to excuse his behavior, the ancient dragon threatens to turn their arrogant attitude into ash. So Razel asks Marcia to activate an absorb barrier, and immediately the ancient dragon unleashes hell on them. Afterwards, the flames disappear, surprising Marcia that she could survive the attack. While the dragon couldn't believe his eyes either, Razel tells Marcia that she had surpassed the dragon long ago. When she asks again to be sure, Razel explains that she should be able to beat the dragon in a heartbeat. Hearing this, the ancient dragon comments that they're blabbering after blocking just one of his attacks. Meanwhile, Marcia recites a part of the contract with the humans, which says that the demons would devote themselves to helping humans, while the summoned hero subjugates them. After this, she states that the section would be nullified if she defeats the ancient dragon, and Razel chips in that she's making the face of a demon lord. Although it might not be enough practice to face the combined hero, Razel tells her to go for it since it's her first fight, and she should remember. In response, Marcia says she couldn't believe her first fight would be with an ancient dragon, and adds that her arms can't wait. Meanwhile, the ancient dragon threatens to burn them till there are no ashes left, but Marcia says she'll hunt him down for the sake of the demon's future. So she activates her magic spear attack and launches it against the ancient dragon, who then tells her to feel his wrath. However, Marcia's attack hits the ancient dragon, resulting in a massive explosion, and the ancient dragon collapses. Surprised, Marcia wonders if it's over already, while Razel thinks the dragon is too weak. Marcia then decides to finish off the dragon thoroughly since it'd be a problem if it woke up again. Meanwhile, Razel asks Marcia what she'd do with the dragon's body, and she says she'll use it for negotiations with the humans. When she points out that they already have enough evidence of the dragon's defeat, Razel asks what they could do with it. While he thinks, Marcia suggests they use it as materials for magical tools, since they can't waste the materials of a 1,000-year-old dragon. Suddenly, Razel exclaims, and Marcia asks if it's something interesting. He then reveals that he got an idea, and Marcia asks him to tell her about it. However, Razel tells her not to rush since he'll be needing her help with it. Later that day, at the Demon Lord's castle, Cecil asks why she's suddenly getting a present, and Marcia urges her to take the present first. After this, she adds that Razel will explain the reason later. So Cecil checks out her present while Razel explains that it's a sword made from the slumbering ancient dragon. In addition, he explains that it's specially customized for her bloodline and can activate magic circles saved in it by pouring mana into it. In response, Cecil says she can't take such an amazing present since it'll be a waste for her to use it. So Marcia states that defeating the combined hero doesn't mean others won't emerge, and states that Cecil will defeat them if they do, surprising Cecil. At this point, Cecil realizes she'll be the one doing the fighting when Marcia is gone, so she decides to accept the sword. After this, she commends Razel for defeating the slumbering ancient dragon, but Razel says he wasn't the one who defeated it. Surprised, Cecil turns to Marcia with a questioning look while Marcia flaunts her bragging rights by saying she defeated the ancient dragon. While Cecil freaks out on hearing this, Razel whispers that she was scared at first. Just then, Cecil asks if they used everything they got from the dragon to make the sword, but Marcia explains that they'll be holding a festival with the leftovers. Afterwards, Cecil points out that a festival with dragon meat as the main dish is tempting, while Marcia suggests they invite everyone in the city to have a taste and adds that she'll leave the butchering to Razel. A few minutes later, a feast was prepared in a hall, and the demons feasted on the dragon's meat. While the attendees comment on how soft and delicious the meat tastes, Marcia figures that although her training has come to an end and they get to enjoy peace for a bit, the real battle has just begun. Hearing this, Razel says she's right, since the combined hero's power is on another level compared to the dragon. So Marcia comments that the goddess backing the combined hero is dangerous, since they don't know what she has up her sleeves. When Marcia points out that they have to pull themselves together for the fight, Cecil says she believes in Marcia and Razel. Shortly after, Marcia says she'll leave the diplomatic stuff to Cecil after the fight and warns her not to compromise on them. So Cecil assures Marcia that she's got it covered. While the feast goes on, Marcia says she can't eat anymore since her stomach is filled, while Razel comments that she doesn't look like a demon lord. Suddenly, they both feel a ping, and when Razel asks if she noticed too, Marcia says they've got 3 hostiles at the front gate. So Razel asks if she's got any ideas, and Marcia states that their combat powers vary. Meanwhile, outside the gate, the summoned heroes stand and check out the demon lord's castle. Leal then comments that he can't believe they got there fast and adds that he'll talk to the guard since their target is the demon lord. While Banza worries that Leal is making a reckless move, Leal approaches the guards and tells them to get the demon lord. However, the demon guard calls him an impolite orc while adding that they won't let them through the gates. Feeling insulted, Leal threatens to use the guards as warm-ups before the demon lord, and the guard says he'll guard the door even if it costs him his life. Meanwhile, Razel and Marcia watch the situation from within the castle, and Marcia states that they'll have to head out. However, Razel says that he can't go out in his outfit since he's supposed to be dead. Outside the gate, Leal and the guards prepare to show each other who's boss, and just when they clash, a dark portal suddenly appears. Shortly after, Marcia and Razel emerge from it, and Marcia informs the intruders that they're committing a crime. Surprised, Leal comments that she's an upper-class demon, while Banza warns him that he'll be dead soon if he doesn't calm down. Meanwhile, the guards apologize to Marcia and state that they'll gather a troop to eliminate the intruders. However, Marcia says it's not needed since she has something to talk about with the intruders. Hearing this, Banza figures he might be able to get some answers out of her. Just when Leal tries to run his mouth again, Banza tells him to give him some time since he's got an idea. After this, Banza apologizes for their impolite actions and states that they'd just like to know one thing. When he asks Marcia if she'll listen to them, the other summoned heroes wonder if he's got a plan. Hearing this, Marcia comments that the summoned heroes are lame and asks if they pulled up at their gates just to talk. Just then, Banza asks if the words "combined hero" ring any bells, surprising Marcia. Sensing this, Banza points out that she knows something while Marcia tells Razel that she's leaving it to him. She then turns around and tells him to prepare to teleport. While the other heroes ask Banza what he's talking about, Banza tells them it's fine, and suddenly a magic circle appears above them. Shocked, they wonder what it is while commenting that they've never seen anything like it. As the light from the circle engulfs them, they assume they've been tricked. However, they suddenly get teleported to a different place where Marcia tells them to lift their heads and welcomes them to an audience with the Demon Lord. So Marcia introduces herself as the Demon Lord, surprising the summoned heroes. Immediately, she adds that she'll be answering all their questions. Banza asks what a combined hero means. In response, Marcia explains that the combined hero is the trump card of the humans and the demons' arch-nemesis, while adding that the summoned heroes are just fodder. Hearing this, Banza figures his instincts were right, while Leal asks Marcia to show them some proof against the human kingdom. Marcia then comments that she understands their distrust and adds that she can't deal with Leal's temper, so she tells Razel to continue. Just when Razel shows up, saying it's been a while, Leal asks who he is, and Razel says that they don't recognize him because of his costume. So he takes it off, and the summoned heroes freak out, saying he should be dead. Razel then says he's got something to show them, while Leal asks if it's not another trick. In response, Razel tells him to confirm with his own eyes and activates a spell that displays a holographic screen, showing the combined hero chatting with the king. Seeing this, summoned heroes ask about the guy talking to the king since they've never seen him in the palace. In response, Razel says he's the combined hero, who is a result of the summoned heroes combined. However, Frodo says he looks like a normal human, so Razel shows them a number on the screen and explains that it's his combat power reading. Despite this, Frodo asks why they'd need more heroes when they already have someone that strong, and asks if the combined heroes' combat rating is the result of many heroes over time. In response, Mersha states that summoned heroes are nothing but fodder, surprising Banza, who then asks if that means they can't return to their worlds. Hearing this, Frodo tears up, thinking he won't get to see his family again, while Leal laments his predicament. After this, Marcia reveals that the demons have been suppressed by the force of the humans for years, and adds that they won't let the summoned heroes off the hook for free. Immediately, Banza begs and asks if Marcia won't help them somehow, while offering to become slaves. However, Mersha asks Banza what his friends think, and Frodo also begs her to help them. Reluctantly, Leal apologizes and adds that he must return home no matter what. Together, they bowed and begged Mersha to show them mercy, but Marcia says she'll give them their first orders. She then states that they'll all become dead corpses, surprising the summoned heroes. Meanwhile, in the human royal capital, the king goes through a report of an incident where a party of humans wiped out a party of demons. The king then comments that it's all right, and adds that it's annoying that the demons went to court because of that. Suddenly, a portal opens above him, and when he checks it out, something falls on him as he screams. While he wonders if a pillar fell over him, he suddenly looks around and realizes it's dead bodies, so he freaks out on spotting the holes in their guts. He then wonders why they're in his office and passes out, thinking it's a nightmare. An hour before this, at the Demon King's castle, after Mersha announced that the summoned heroes would have to become corpses, they asked what she meant while asking if she was tricking them. However, Mersha said she's telling the truth, while Razel suggested she stop teasing the summoned heroes. In response, Mersha said she's got to see the dumbfounded faces of the heroes, annoying Leal, who then asked her to limit her pranks. Just then, Mersha revealed that she's holding a grudge while Banza tried to calm Leal. So, Leal told Mersha to explain what she meant in a way a dummy like him could understand. However, Mersha leaves the explanation to Razel, and he asks them how they think he fooled the assassins and the king. After the heroes made a few wrong guesses, Mersha revealed that he had made a fake body, shocking the heroes, who then freaked out and guessed he had murdered someone to pull it off. However, Razel clarifies that he created his own body, while Mersha laughs at the heroes. While the heroes try to wrap their smooth brains around that, Leal feels like his head is about to explode. So Razel shows that his multifunctional cell and states that he used it to make a clone. Seeing this, Frodo comments that his world is yet to perfect their research on clone spells and admits that Razel knows magic more than they do. Meanwhile, Leal said it'd irk him to know a copy of himself exists somewhere. However, Razel explains that the clones can't sustain themselves, so they'll be using them. Shortly after, 3 clones of the summoned heroes lie on the floor while they freak out on seeing the lifeless copies of themselves. So, Razel states that they'll be using the clones to fake their deaths. When Frodo asks what they'll do with them since it's dangerous to drop them in the human territory, Razel says he's right and reveals that he's got away. Afterwards, he announces that they'll be sending the bodies straight to the king's office, while Mersha adds that she'll include a letter with her magic. At the palace of the humans, royal capital, Regias wakes the king and gets excited to find out that he has finally awakened. Regias then explains that they heard him scream, and on entering, they found him surrounded by corpses. When the king regains his senses, he asks where the corpses came from, and Regias explains that they're the bodies of the 3 summoned heroes. Hearing this, the king states that the demon lord has finally crossed the line and points out that the bodies returned too quickly. Just then, Regias presents a device to the king and says it might hold answers. Curious, the king asks what it is, and Regias explains that it's a teleporting device they found among the corpses with a letter. Hearing this, the king wonders if the demons found a retired sage and wonders how they made something that incredible. When he asks about the letter, Regias presents it to him. On reading the letter from Mersha, the king gets notified that his summoned heroes are toast, and the slumbering great dragon has been slain. Because of this, Mersha proposes they review some sections of their contracts and accept his declaration of war. Annoyed, the king says it's a stupid letter and squeezes it while asking if Mersha knows what the letter means. He then says she's impudent for declaring war against the humans and orders Regia's to have the combined hero burn down the demons' territory. Just when Regia suggests they send scouts first, since the demons have been making sus moves in recent times, the king asks if he'd like to be executed for treason. So Regia's decides to get on with the command, leaving the king fuming in anger. Meanwhile, at the demon lord's castle, Mersha laughs and informs the summoned heroes that the human king fell for the pranks Razel pulled while they stared at her. Mersha had requested that Razel put a button that'll shock the king on the device, and he fell for it by pushing the shock button. However, the summoned heroes didn't share their amusement since they're occupied with thoughts of their situation. So Mersha says they're lucky they made it out before they got combined, and Leal responds, saying he hates the idea of combining with someone else. Just then, they hear a knock on the door and a messenger delivers a letter from the human kingdom. On opening it, Mersha wonders what they wrote back, and when Razel asks if she got a colorful reply, Mersha reveals that the king took the bait. In the letter, the king had sent a location for the battle and threats to turn the demons' land into a sea of fire. Hearing this, the summoned heroes get tense about the battle while Razel states that they won't have a chance to shine. Surprised, they wonder what he means, and Razel explains that the war will focus on winning with a small number and guesses the humans' plan to assert dominance using the combined hero. Just then, Mersha chips in that she's planning to defeat the combined hero and knock the humans off their high horses. When the summoned heroes freak out on hearing this, Mersha confirms that she intends to fight the combined hero on her own. On the morning of the battle, Razel gets busy outside the castle, and Banza asks what he's doing out early in the morning. Razel then explains that he's prepping for the big fight. Just then, Banza spots a weird structure nearby and asks what it is, so Razel explains that it's a magic tool for image reception, which he set everywhere around the demon lord's territory. Since the structures have gemstones, Banza asks if the whole territory has that many magic stones, but Razel reveals that Frodo helped him with some. Surprised, Banza wonders how he did all that in one day and asks Razel why he's setting up the tools. Razel then explains that he plans to broadcast the fight between the Demon Lord and the combined hero to let the world know how strong the current Demon Lord is, and to avoid invasions when she's not in the territory. Curious, Banza asks if Mersha is going anywhere, and Razel reveals that he's bringing her to his world since there's someone he needs to beat. Hearing this, Banza gets scared on realizing there's someone Razel can't beat, and figures it's something summoned heroes can't handle. While Razel heads off, Banza thinks it's a good thing they didn't get to fight. Sometime later, Sarina tests a microphone and apologizes to the demon populace for keeping them waiting. After this, she adds that the fight between the Demon Lord and the combined hero is about to begin. Meanwhile, Razel spots the human army at the fight location and comments that they're fewer than he expected, while Mersha says they think the demons are weak. Just then, the combined hero steps out of the human army and points out that the demons underestimate the humans by sending just 2 people. After this, he compliments Mersha on becoming quite the fine woman, while Mersha responds by saying he needs to learn better pickup lines. She then asks about the goddess's whereabouts, and the combined hero says he's more than enough for 2 of them. Meanwhile, Mersha asks Razel through telepathy if he could sense the goddess, and he says he could sense she's not ready for the battle. After this, Razel figures the city must be empty and gets an idea, so he says he remembered something important and decides to leave the fight to Mersha, who then accuses him of plotting something. Afterwards, she tells him to leave since it'll all be over when he returns. So, Razel vanishes, surprising the combined hero, who then asks Mersha if she'd be fighting solo. When he adds that he doesn't mind everyone joining her, Mersha scoffs and laughs at him, making the combined hero ask if she's gone haywire. In response, Mersha says she can't believe she was scared of a small fry for years. Triggered, the combined hero orders the human army to sit still while he finishes it up. Just then, Mersha calls him a weak guy for jumping easily at her provocation, so she announces that it's his final day and annoys the combined hero, who then launches an attack, saying he'll end it all in seconds. However, Mersha evades his attacks and summons lightning from the sky. Suddenly, she makes it rain bolts on the combined hero, who then gets his arm blasted off as a result. While he bleeds out, the combined hero yells angrily, surprising Mersha that he couldn't dodge the attack. After this, Mersha asks why his healing is taking a bit of time as the combined hero tries to grow another arm. Suddenly, Mersha snaps her fingers and activates another attack, but the combined hero says they're merely petty tricks. Suddenly, he gets impaled by the attack and he bleeds out, thinking he needs to quickly use full heal magic. While he heals, Mersha cooks up another spell and releases a dark object, which floats into the combined hero's wound. Suddenly, the healing stops, and the darkness spreads through the combined hero's body. While the deadbeat hero wonders what just happened, Mersha explains that she's strong and he's weak, so the combined hero collapses. Just then, Mersha comments that the fight was boring while the human soldiers freak out. Back in the demon's territory, Selena gives a commentary on the fight and announces the victory of the demon lord. While the demons jubilate, Selena ends the broadcast, and Razel suddenly shows up on the fight scene. So Mersha asks if he watched the fight, and Razel says it was amazing. He then chips in that he just finished with his business too, and Mersha asks what he was up to. Afterwards, Razel reveals that he stole the combined hero's device, and confirms that he analyzed it. When Mersha asks if they're going to use it for something, Razel tells her to be calm since he'd need an audience for what he's about to do. So he calls out the goddess of summoning and tells her to step out, since he has the combined hero's device. However, when he gets no response, Razel states that she's not there, while Mersha says she's probably avoiding his bait. So Razel says she'll come out eventually, and Mersha tells him to go ahead with his plan. Just then, Razel reveals his plan to carry out an experiment on himself and the combined hero. Before this, when Razel vanished before the battle began, he figured the defenses in the human king's palace must be weak, so he checked his map and located where the device was in the palace. Afterward, he teleports to the location and finds out that no one's guarding the device. When he discovered there were no traps set either, he figured the humans were careless due to their arrogance. So he wonders why it's so easy, and he picks up the device to analyze it. Just then, he realized the device was useful and teleported back to the fight location. So Mersha asks why he's combining with the hero instead of her, and Razel explains that the device only absorbs the magic powers of someone and adds them to someone else. When Mersha asks again why he's the specimen instead of her, Razel points out that she's above him in terms of maximum capacity. Surprised, Mersha asks what he means, and he explains that she could become strong enough to surpass him. In addition to this, Razel says he's not being selfish since he's just trying not to get in her way when she becomes stronger. Afterwards, Razel reveals that the device has a connection between the goddess and the magical mind circuit. When Mersha expresses her surprise on hearing this, Razel reveals that they could perform mental manipulation on the goddess, and since he's better at it, he states that he should be the one using it. Just then, Mersha laments, saying she can't object after hearing all that. To make her feel better, Razel says they can't tell what might happen if they carry out the experiment, making Mersha wonder if it's safe. So Razel announces the commencement of the experiment and activates the device. Suddenly, magic particles were extracted from the combined hero's corpse and moved into Razel while Mersha shields her eyes from the bright light. After Razel figures the activation had no problem since he doesn't feel anyone's personality taking over. So, Mersha asks him how it went, and he reveals that he feels like his mana is overflowing, but adds that he could suppress it. When Razel states that the experiment was a success, Mersha freaks out, but they get interrupted by a captain of the human army, who then asks why the device is in their possession. In response, Mersha reveals that they stole it, surprising the captain. So he points out that the device should have been in the deepest parts of the palace. Ignoring this, Mersha lands and tells the captain to deliver a message to the king. She then tosses a letter at the captain, who then asks what it is. Mersha then says it's their final warning for the humans to surrender. Suddenly, the captain tears up and says he'll be tortured and executed by the king if he delivers the letter. Hearing this, Mersha says she should send his head to the kingdom as a bonus if he's so scared of the king. So the captain decides to deliver the message and runs off, while Mersha says she'll help him before he gets executed. When the captain returns to his army, the soldiers ask what happened, but he tells them to retreat without question. Meanwhile, Razel asks Mersha if she thinks the king will get the letter, and she comments that there won't be any problem since the captain believes she's coming to help him. While the human soldiers march away, Mersha suggests they send them off with a teleportation spell, but Razel says he wants to try some new tactics with his new mana pool. However, since Mersha didn't sound too enthusiastic about it, Razel says she looks like she's in a bad mood. In response, Mersha says it's unfair that he gets all the new stuff when she's the one who defeated the combined hero. However, Razel assures her that he's cooking up the ultimate trump card for her, and Mersha freaks out on hearing this. So, Razel suggests they head back to the castle and adds that Cecil and the other must have prepared a feast. Shortly after, when they arrive at the Demon Lord's castle, they are welcomed by the demons, so Mersha hugs Cecil, and a chef brings in a dish for Mersha and Cecil. Later that night, while they sleep together in bed, Cecil asks Mersha if she really defeated the combined hero, and Mersha confirms this. She then explains that she's still shaking since it was scary. Just then, Cecil holds her hands and states that it's an extremely important step in protecting the people of their country. In addition to this, Cecil suggests they protect the country together, no matter how close or far apart they might be. Meanwhile, Razel stands outside overhearing the conversation. The next day, while the demon populace gathers, Mersha climbs up some stairs and on getting to the podium, she tells the people to be silent. After this, she announces that although the threat of the combined hero is gone, they need to be ready for another threat. After this, she adds that she'll be traveling to another world for training with Razel. Hearing this, the demons murmur while Mersh smiles, since she saw it coming. However, she tells them not to fret since she has left all her wisdom to someone else. She then commands Cecil to step forward and announces that she'll be handing over her authority to her while she's gone. In addition to this, Mersha shamefully admits that Cecil is more politically skilled than she and asks if anyone has objections. After this, she instructs Cecil to greet the people, so Cecil reveals that she's not as naive as Mersha and urges the people to work with her when Mersha's gone. When the people respond in affirmation, Mersha advises Cecil to do it in moderation. A few days later, Mersha asks Razel what they're doing in the middle of the ocean, and he says they'll be learning self-strengthening spells. He then tells her to step back a little and activates a spell, while Mersha wonders why he's taking a lot of time with the spell. Suddenly, Razel transforms into a huge dragon while Mersha freaks out. Afterwards, she asks if Razel meant turning into a dragon when he talked about the strengthening spell. Without waiting for a response, she asks if being trapped in a big body won't make it hard to cast a spell. Razel then explains that there's another part to the spell, so he explodes in another burst of light and suddenly turns into his human form. Surprised, Mersha asks why he turned back into a human, and Razel tells her to look closer at his body structure. When she does this, she discovers that the magic particles around Razel have changed into those of a dragon. So she asks if he's a human and a dragon at the same time. So, Razel confirms that she's correct and asks her about the pros and cons of transforming into a combo of dragon and human. In response, Mersha explains that although he'd be able to use the dragon's unique spell, he's become slower due to its large body frame. After this, Mersha figures it out and states that he could cancel out the demerits by transforming into a human without disabling his dragon form. Impressed, Razel says she's correct and adds that he'd get a stronger body and can also use the dragon's unique spell. So, Mersha says she's not sure she can use such a high-level technique, while Razel scolds her for belittling herself. He then explains that her dragon form is decided by her mana pool, and since she's always had a big mana pool, she's the best fit for the spell. After he comments on her low self-esteem, Razel figures it's probably because of the abuse she's endured over the years. So he states that it's his job as her mentor to raise her confidence, while Mersha says she'll be counting on him. After this, Razel states that they need to learn self-strengthening, so he hands her a bracelet, and when she asks what it is for, Razel explains that it's to lessen the burden and stabilize her spells during the training. Hearing this, Mersha freaks out and decides to do her best. Sometime later, while Razel fiddles with his magical holographic interface, Mersha shows up and announces that she has finally learned the dragon-human transformation technique. When he commends her for this, Mersha asks if he wants to see her try it. Meanwhile, Razel recalls the moment he tried the spell and couldn't turn back into a human. Afterwards, he asks Mersha if the combined hero was the strongest in the world, and when she confirms it, she asks why he's not looking into it by himself. So, Razel asks her about the moon, making Mersha wonder if anyone lives there. Razel then asks if she's sure no one lives on the moon, but Mersha says he could research it if he wants, while adding that it'll be big if he discovers it's true. Just then, Razel reveals that he's just about to do that, so he lets his satellite fly high and zoom in on the moon. Just then, he spits a castle on the moon and someone standing in front of it. However, the person looks up and somehow shuts down his feed. When Mersha asks him how it went, Razel reveals that the dude cut off his connection and adds that there's someone actually strong in the world. Hearing this, Mersha freaks out and says she's never heard anything like that, even though she's lived for a few centuries. After this, Razel asks if she'd like to try out her newly learned techniques as she reveals that she's down, while Razel reveals that their goal is the strongest on the moon. Shortly after, Razel and Mersha arrive at the castle on the moon and wonder how they'll get in. Just then, they realize the door is open and wonder if they're being welcomed. When Mersha states that they're being lured into a trap, Razel says he can't sense any hostility and suggests they head inside. However, he suddenly halts, and Mersha asks why he did. She then realizes there's air and the scent of grass, so she freaks out as she wonders how a grassland exists on the moon. So, Razel explains that it's called spatial creation, while Mersha points out that it must require a lot of mana and marvels at the existence of such a person in her world. However, just when Razel states that it's not a person, the moon dude shows up and asks what business they have there. After checking him out, Mersha points out that he's the one who let them in, but the guy says he didn't feel like stepping out. Just then, Razel figures the guy is a humanoid dragon. So the humanoid dragon asks what they're doing in his abode, and Mersha reveals that she's looking for someone strong to have a bout with. Amused, the humanoid dragon says she could have attacked him but chose to ask first. When Mersha asks if he's taking her challenge, the humanoid dragon prepares for a fight and asks which of them will go first. Mersha then comments that the guy looks strong, while Razel states that he hasn't seen a humanoid dragon in a while. Just then, Razel decides to join Mersha as they attack together, while the humanoid dragon gets excited since he hasn't had fun in 1,000 years. Suddenly, he levitates and suggests they get started while Mersha says she won't hold back. Suddenly, Mersha launches multiple attacks at the humanoid dragon, who then evades the attack and appears behind Mersha while saying she's too slow. However, when he tries to launch a counter, Razel shows up and casts a spell that binds the dragon's arm. Surprised by this, the humanoid dragon asks Razel if he thinks the spell could hold him. Suddenly, Razel attacks him from behind and puts a hole in him. Because of the attack, the humanoid dragon wonders why he can't move and tries to punch Razel. But the punch gets blocked by a magical shield, making the humanoid dragon discover he's strengthening his body using the Dragon Man technique. When Razel attacks him again, the humanoid dragon realizes that Razel is just trying to immobilize him completely. Just then, Razel comments that a dragon's flaw is his short temper, while Mersha kicks the humanoid dragon in the face. To his surprise, the devastating kick throws the humanoid dragon off balance, while Razel rips out his heart from his chest. Suddenly, the humanoid dragon falls to the ground and says he lost to the Otherworlders. When Razel approaches him, the humanoid dragon says he'd like to impart his skill onto him and adds that Mersha seems very talented. Just then, Razel takes the dragon's hand and receives the dragon skills. Afterwards, the dragon says he's glad to have fought them and adds that he had fun. So he dies, and Mersha says she couldn't believe there were people as strong as him. When Razel adds that the dragon devoted his life to improving himself, Mersha sulks and asks why he finished him off when the fight was already over. When she adds that it would have been smart to keep him as an ally, Razel says the technique he got from the dragon will explain everything. Curious, Mersha asks what the technique is, and Razel says it's called the resurrection of the dead. Do you think Razer has what it takes to take on the goddess of summoning? Let's know your thought in the comments. To find out what happens next, leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.